Hello everyone, Simon here with a review of Grid. Grid is the 2019 reboot of the Grid series, which has been going for many a years, and if you're like me, you'll trace it all the way back to Toka on the PlayStation 1 in the 90s. It's available on PlayStation 4, which is the version you see on your screen. It's also available on PC and Xbox One. And for me, it sits firmly in the arcade section of the Simcade part of the arcade to simulation scale. I appreciate that is the most long-winded way of trying to explain the handling and the feel of this game. But when people go, it's Simcade, because it's not your iRacing or R-Factors, you've got the F1 racing games, which I think slightly err towards the simulation side of the Simcade middle ground. This is very much on the other side, towards the arcade end. Yes, you can turn off a lot of the assists as you play through this game, but I actually found that my experience and happiness of this game diminished the more those assists came off, and so I ended up wanting to just embrace the full fun and catastrophizing that the game loves to do throughout its experience. And it kind of makes it a unique game in that actually sometimes playing really poorly makes the game much better. And I'll explain why as I go through. The majority of this game you will be playing is in the career single player mode, to basically buy cars as you go throughout the experience. Career is split into several different tiers. You've got the touring car mode, which is for me the home and grassroots of Grid. You've got cars there from the V8 Supercar series, BTCC, and you've got a variety of different liveries, and actually the whole customization element of the game is superb and absolutely trounces anything that Codemasters has done beforehand, so big hats off to that. You've also got the stock cars, and they handle like trucks. In fact, some of them are trucks, to be fair, but they're going around doing the oval racing. They essentially are your NASCAR type cars, understeer chronically, a real pig to get round. You've then got the tuner events, which kind of evoke some of the street night racing that you get and drift racing in Japan. Thankfully, it is not drift-tastic, which I really lament how drifting has become like this thing that so many of Codemasters games seems to want to have. I don't find any joy particularly in that at all. Give me proper circuits that I can go racing on, and that's better for it. You also have the GT section, which has GT1, Class 1 and Class 2 cars, which is grand, and they all handle significantly differently as well, which was what I really liked about that category. You've then got the Fernando Alonso racing category, which is really underutilising his brand name. It essentially brings the only two open-wheeled cars to the series. So you've got like a little Formula 100, which is like a junior category car, and then you've got his championship-winning Renault from, I believe, 2006. And they're there, but they're heavily underutilised, as is Fernando Alonso as a whole. There are also in that tier, and across other tiers as well, several other named drivers, like Jamie Chadwick's in there, but they don't get any mention whatsoever. So if you wasn't actually a Formula 1, a motorsport racing fan, quite a lot of these like names of other drivers you're racing against would go right over your head, and I feel like that was a real faux pas and an underselling of the licence as a whole. Now, as you'll be going through these races, they're drawn normally into either pure racing, time attack events where you've got 3 laps to post your fastest time, and then occasionally you'll get point-to-point racing, which is just around a couple of strips of extreme high hills in Japan. And that's essentially your lot. As you go round the various different tracks, you get the same tracks over and over again, which is a real shame, but you do get different layouts of them. However, what career mode does is it really has some favourite tracks, and I was getting really frustrated because some of the other ones, like the San Francisco track for example, only pop up a couple of times, and some of the longer variants of tracks barely pop up at all. So you kind of start to feel like a little bit of a repetitive vibe comes in as you go through the career mode, going along, earning cash, levelling up your car, your driver, so that you can then unlock different customizable parts to then go back and repaint the cars that you bought as you go along. Thankfully, you don't have to do anything like expanding your garage or anything like that. It's literally driving around, getting first, earning the cash, buying the cars, customizing, and continuing on that cycle as it goes along. Yes, it is basic, but actually I found that there was a good progression drive through, and you can see how as you start to change everything into gold cups as you go through career mode, you can feel the progression as you're moving across the board. Ultimately, you do need to do 4 of the kind of 5 or 6 layers that are going on, because there's an invitation layer as well with lots of historic car events going on. Once you've got 4 of those, that opens up like the final grid series up on the very top of the screen of career, that you then go through different challenges across all of the disciplines, and then like a final race at the end. The only thing that kind of annoyed me with career mode, apart from the repetition of tracks, was that actually the final ending of each element of the career mode was horribly underwhelming, because it was all a single event, like 2-lap race, against AI that was no more tricky or difficult than what you had dealt with before. Which kind of made it a bit angry for me, because Fernando Alonso and Jamie Chadwick and Tim Slade, I think, is in there as well. They should be like the ones that should be like 5% more harder than anyone else beforehand. So it just felt really pathetic that Fernando Alonso came in last in my race. So yeah, it just was a bit like, nah. Who gave him the McLaren of 2017? Do you know what I mean? Or 2018, sorry. So that kind of bug aside though, the career mode works perfectly fine. The way how you level up as a player to unlock all of these customizations is by performing good drivering deeds. So as you overtake, that's earned you points. It might be racing on the racing line, although I found that to be very tricky to actually kick off. Drafting people, although it seems to want you to draft people it's like at a diagonal to them rather than being directly behind them. Also running in close proximity to other cars and the walls and barriers around you, and chaining them together. There was one slight weird quirk though with the XP gaining, and that after a while it starts to do times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5. And I was like, cool, I'm going to get that amount doubled, tripled, quadrupled, or quintupled, whatever the word is for that. And actually isn't that case at all, and it just gives you the same amount of points again. And I kind of thought, oh, so I don't know whether or not I'm just misreading the XP system, or it's broken. I don't know. But regardless, whenever it starts to give you multipliers, they're not multipliers, and it never multiplied for me. So, oh dear. However, one of the weirdest things that I can say about this game is, and it's a compliment and a curse at the same time, and that is how cinematic it wants all of the racing to be. So, the AI in this game are like an angry bunch of lobbyists that are competent in racing each other, but don't know quite when to not make a move, if that makes sense. So they will do the dive bomb, they will happily nudge you from behind, they're aggressive to the nth degree, and particularly if you then hit them and then they become your nemesis, they will dive bomb you, and actually that seems to be when they seem to be 5% quicker than they've ever been before, and they will continue to chase and hound you down because they've got red-eyed mist, which is fun, but, and it's, if you're then doing competitive racing and you're able to stay clear of them, the AI are so busy squabbling each other and making it look cinematic that they start to hold each other up. So what I found myself doing to keep myself heavily entertained in this game was to not qualify for anything and start last. And what I would be doing is enjoying the AI smashing and ramming into each other and having proper dive bomb moments, and then I'd just go in and pick up the pieces afterwards, and I'd still be up there winning, even if I was supposedly going at the same pace, because the AI are so busy trying to fight each other and yourselves, particularly when you become a nemesis to them, they just slow each other down by a couple of seconds a lap. Occasionally, one or two people might skedaddle away up front, but the way how multiple events would work is that you get reverse grids. So then they'll be at the back for the next one, you'll be slightly further forward, or it might be reverse championship order. So then they're going to be at the back afterwards. And because everyone's busy smashing into each other and slowing each other up, you only have to be in like the middle ground of all the races to then win the championship. And that is kind of where it's cinematic to look at, and it gives you plenty of stuff to react to, because there will invariably be a car barrel rolling across the track at some point. It felt very split second sometimes, which is a game I absolutely love and adore. But actually, in terms of it being a realistic racing experience, fun though it may be, it detracts from the actual quote-unquote competitive axis that the game is trying to go for, and it runs at conflict of this: look at these amazing real world tracks, look at all of these cars that we've got, look at the amazing damage model we've got, oh by the way, everyone's going to go nuts. And that is why I started to then turn back on the assists, because it made me feel like playing and driving like a simulation driver is not really what's required here. It's getting stuck in and dirty and having a good time in an arcade setting. And that's why I say that Grid is more of an arcade racing in the Simcade spectrum than a simulation game. Yeah, you could probably turn off all of the different handling models and really wrestle your car around, and some of those cars do love to swap ends quicker than I like to dive into Dunkin' Donuts. But Krispy Kremes, to be fair, looking at my waistline. But yeah, the whole game just feels like it doesn't reward you for doing that. So why should I? Let's just get stuck in and push each other around and create nemesises. And it gave me a really wanting experience to keep on racing more and more and more and more, because I had actually turned it into a complete arcade experience. And for that, Grid is superb. Do not come here expecting a simulation experience. Do not come here expecting clean racing. That also applies to how people race online as well. It must be said. The very few races that I have done online on Grid have just been smash fests. So you're going to need to cultivate your own people around you and have your own kind of simulation league. And not make sure no one else joins, because it will just be a smash fest. And that's fine, but it does kind of feel a little bit to me like Grid has mismarketed itself, because I come to Grid for it to be... When you look back to Toka, Grid Autosport was a really good example of this. It was all supposed to be coming back to track racing and being really, really... simulation route grounded, but the game is not that at all. And it's this continuing issue that we have with non-F1 Codemaster games that I think is a bit more of an issue, like an identity crisis for Codemasters as a company in general. It's sitting there desperately trying to Americanize itself in the way how NASCAR has gone as a sport, where people don't have attention for more than 10 seconds, start to drool and turn off, and it doesn't need to be that way. I'd thought that Dirt Rally and Dirt Rally 2.0 have proved enough that if you want to go down a real sim racing experience, and Project Cars actually would be a really good example of this as well, there is a market there for people who want real simulation experience, and this won't necessarily give it. Anyway, off my high horse on that. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble-roo. The other thing I wanted to bring up as well, and it's a really weird one to kind of argue about, and it's track design. And it's track design with curbs and weird chicanes. And this seems to be a penchant that Grid has gone for on this iteration. An awful lot of the homemade Codemasters tracks that are on there to bring up the selection of real world tracks on there, like Brands Hatch, for example. You've got these weird chicanes that are kind of like a jink left, jink right. And the only way I can describe them in like a real world scenario is, do you remember the old flick flack at Hungary, at the Hungaro ring that is now no longer there? So a really quick left right. But what they do is in all of the street circuits and even some of the other like circuit, like real road circuits, they've put them in with barriers either side and then massive chunky curbs in the middle. And some of the cars just can't go over them. And so you kind of spin out randomly. And it just seemed like really awkward, lazy track design, particularly when all of the street courses sadly have got the Formula E approach to them of we'll do a 90-degree corner followed by a 90-degree corner, and then one of those left-right chicanes that just annoy everyone, and then a 90-degree corner. And what I'd like to see perhaps if Grid gets a sequel in the future is if they're going to continue to put in some more custom-made tracks. Just look at the things that Gran Turismo have done. Look at the things that even other Codemasters games have done beforehand, way back in time, where they've had like real proper track building abilities and like they've created a real environment around them that is not just 90 degree, 90 degree, 90 degree, oh, it's a street circuit, we'll get away with it. Put some real creativity into some of those tracks, because if you've got a blank canvas you can create some really good circuits that create the racing that you're looking for. And with 90-degree corners and those type of flick-flack environments, it's built so that you smash into people, and that's exactly what Grid is going for in that arcade experience. So yeah, I hope that kind of mini rant makes sense, and I appreciate that throughout a lot of this review I've ranted, but I have genuinely really enjoyed my time with Grid. It just wasn't what I thought I was buying. I thought I was buying something that was going to be more simulation based, but in the end I've had a great time playing the game continuously over the last month with just pure arcade settings, having a blast. I've not dived into any of the DLC. It's labelled as Season 1, which makes me think there's going to be several seasons coming out. But what is there is plentiful. Next time, would have loved some more circuits. There's plenty of cars in there to have a muck about with, and they do all handle differently, which is great. I love the customization that goes into these cars as well. I've created some great purple and yellow cars. Maybe I'll do like a little video that just shows you all of the different designs that I've built along the way. It didn't need to have the extent of customization that Gran Turismo has, but it's a huge step up from the F1 games, which was so limited in what they were able to provide. And yeah, it's just an all-round feel-good game. That alongside Wreckfest were two of the big games for me in 2019 that I really enjoyed from a racing perspective. And the fact that I kind of put them together shows me exactly the type of experience that I've had with Grid in relation to Wreckfest, rather than me saying Grid in relation to Formula 1, Project Cars, Assetto Corsa Competizione. I think that paints the picture. So if you've got any comments or questions, please do leave them down in the comments below. I appreciate this is a much longer review than what I normally do, but I have an awful lot to say, and it's a racing game. You know I love those and get passionate about them. It's what I'm generally here for, that and rhythm. So thank you very much for watching. If that's informative, please do like and share about, and I'll hopefully catch you again here on Higher Plane Games. Bye for now. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a collection of media projects ran by me. If you like what you see and want to find out more, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support can make so much more possible, be that a like, a comment, a share, or a pledge. Thanks for watching.